Did you circle the calendar dates? Did you start planning the travel? Did you book the tickets? The schedule is out. Good afternoon on May 16th, 2024, a Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern. The Southside Beat is here. Corey, Chris, and Chris Halicke are here. Let's talk about that schedule, huh? The 2024 NFL schedule was released on Wednesday night, a little bit, actually, right at 8 p.m. Credit to the NFL for letting the teams actually do that, unlike a certain college conference around here.
So I actually am the one who made the graphic for the site, and I already had all the teams laid out.
Nice
so
job.
The whole schedule was leaked before then. So,
officially, though.
Right, officially, and then you get the actual times. Like, you might know who they're playing in each week, but then you get the times and what they're playing and what network it's going to be on, because I know that majority of Steelers fans don't like it when they play on Fox, and just letting you know, at least 3 games on Fox this year. So
I don't understand why. I love Fox's coverage. I love both networks' coverages of the NFL.
The thing that I like about Fox is they show more angles and like all 22 stuff than CBS does. CBS is all about the tight shots and the slow-mo replays and everything like that. And those definitely have a benefit, especially on plays that need slow motion, like plays that could possibly be challenged or whatever else.
Right.
But yeah, there's pros and cons to both. So
in a bit of a continuation of our conversation from yesterday about television and streaming, before we get into who the Steelers are actually playing in what order, this is the order of networks that the games will be on. Fox, 3 on CBS, NBC, CBS, NBC, ESPN, CBS twice, Amazon Prime, CBS twice, Fox twice, Netflix, TBD. So in continuation of our conversation from yesterday, you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different ways to watch the Steelers next year. So buckle up.
If you are in market,
well, if you're in market, you get them on local television,
right?
But even
if you're out of market, if you have YouTube TV with Sunday Ticket, you've got all but 2 games covered.
Yep. All right. The schedule itself. Let's start with the front half, because basically what's going on here is the season's cut into 2. 8 games, then a bye week, and then the final 9 games of the year. So pretty much half and half, if you want to put it that way. The front half looks really nice, doesn't it? At Falcons, at Broncos.
It's so the Falcons aren't like an automatic like W for me. Now, granted, I think we should just preface this by saying it's mid-May.
Yeah, everything could change.
I mean, we haven't even seen this team take the field altogether for voluntary workouts, much less mandatory workouts, much less training camp, much less preseason. Get what I'm saying? Like,
sure.
Like, so that's what I'm saying. Like, we're going to talk about this in mid-May, and our stances, your stances, everybody's stances could change drastically based on everything.
Yeah.
So, but right now, the Falcons to me look like an improved team. The Broncos should be a win. I mean, their quarterback situation is, even with taking Bo Nix, I'm not a fan of their quarterback situation at all. But yeah, 2 games on the road right off the bat. Thank you, Pittsburgh Pirates. If you're a Steelers fan, be mad at Major League Baseball and the Pirates for having them home back-to-back the first 2 weekends of the NFL season. Because I guarantee you that's the reason why the Steelers aren't home. Even Art Rooney II mentioned it in his interview with Missy Matthews. It's like, when baseball schedules are kind of getting in the way.
Who would have thought that Major League Baseball would get in the NFL's way? By the way, no division games in the first 8 weeks of the season. All of the Steelers games within the AFC North.
10 weeks.
First 10 weeks, if you want to call it that, yeah. All of the Steelers division games will take place in the second half of the season, week 11 to week 18. Yep. 6 division games at the Eagles versus the Chiefs. That is as tough as it gets. That is about as brutal as you could potentially design it for any team. let alone the Steelers, let alone any AFC North team where that division, everybody finished 500 last year or better.
Yeah.
For any team having all division games backlogged in the final 8 weeks, 9 weeks of the season, plus the Eagles on the road and the Chiefs Christmas Day on a short week.
Yeah.
How much more difficult could you draw that up for anybody?
Yeah. So this is why, you know, like we already knew the opponents, right? Like we already knew the opponents. We knew who the home games were going to be. We knew who the road games were going to be. If you listen to DK's Daily Shot, he made a lot of good points. The main point that he made that I don't think is being talked about enough is both times they play the Ravens, they have to turn around 4 days later and play somebody else.
Yep.
They play the Ravens in week 11, then 4 days later, they got to go to Cleveland.
Yep.
They play the Ravens in Baltimore. 4 days later, they got to host the Chiefs on Christmas Day. Like that's some
malarkey.
That's like a gigantic double middle finger to the Steelers right there. Because everybody knows you don't have to you can be a casual NFL fan and you know that Steelers Ravens games are different from any other game in the NFL. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say it's undoubtedly or inarguably the best rivalry in football. You can make a lot of arguments for that, but that by far, I don't think that I'm going as far as to say that is the most physical rivalry. And that is, I mean, again, I said it yesterday. It's not a question of if the Steelers are going to walk away with injuries from those games. It's how many injuries are they going to walk away from that game, from those games with injuries? Like how many injuries are there going to be?
Mm-hmm.
That's the question. And how healthy are they going to be going to Cleveland? And the last time they went to Cleveland on Thursday night, they lost. I covered that game in 2022. It's not easy. And the thing is, that was earlier in the season. This is later in the season. This is, the week before Thanksgiving.
Yep.
So it's just, it's a brutal schedule. I think best case scenario, they could be 6-2 by the bye week, right? This is almost the reverse of 2022, right? 22, it was, the first half was, oh my God, that first half is rough.
Yeah.
And especially leading up to the bye week, they had like at Miami, at Philly, like it was a rough stretch there before the bye week. And then it got a lot easier down the stretch. And when the team's playing better, your schedule gets lighter. They were able to rattle off a lot of wins. I think they went 7-2 down the stretch and finished 9-8. But Williams says it, the schedule last year, I mean, it aligned really, really well. And ironically enough, the easiest part of the schedule is where they crapped the bed the most.
Right. Towards the back half of the season. Right?
Yeah, it was like that was the time for them to really catapult themselves to a possible like 12-win season. And they just didn't do it. Now, the one thing that you could take away from last year is that they went 5-1 in the division. Like that is, now you could make a really good argument that, maybe they should have lost that home game against the Ravens because the Ravens outplayed them, should have won the game, but their receivers couldn't hold on to the football. But still, they still went 5-1 in the division. And so you'd think that if there's any coach that's going to prepare their team for 6 division games and an 8-game stretch, Mike Tomlin's going to be the guy. So they better hope that they get themselves off to a, at worst, 5-3 start to start the season, but probably need to be 6-2 by the bye week, because those final 9 games, like, the good thing is, like, you come out of the bye, you got at Washington. Like, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one to kind of ramp up with. Mike Tomlin's teams usually play really good out of a bye. And then after that, the gauntlet begins. Those final 8 games, it's going to be rough, man. That at Philly, at Baltimore, and home against the Chiefs on Christmas. That
Brutal.
3-game stretch to me is going to be what defines the season.
Oh, and against the Browns. I mean, I'm not going to write that off at all.
I'm not going to do.
I'm not write off AFC North stuff. Yeah,
I'm not writing off anything when it comes to the division. But this division is so tight to me that like those 3 games in a row with they're like at Cleveland, at Cincy, then home against Cleveland. Like to me, yeah, they could probably afford to go 1-2 there because they got that home game against the Bengals to close out the season. I think actually, if there's any team to me that the Steelers have the best chance to sweep in this division, it's probably Cincinnati, even with Joe Burrow.
I agree.
So that's why I'm saying like they could probably afford to split with Cleveland as long as they're able to win, one of those games against the Bengals. I really think that they could go 3-3 in the division and still have a 10-win season.
It's all going to come down to how they start. If they're 4-4 or 3-5 creeping into the bye week,
it's over.
Forget it.
All
right, you talk about the Falcons, never know, not a gimme. They pay good money for Kirk Cousins. They have good weapons on offense. Broncos, you can expect to win. Chargers, who knows? Chargers are a good team. At Colts, we just saw what happened last year. Colts are a good team. And they'll have Richardson back. Yeah. Cowboys, never an easy out. At Raiders, should beat the Raiders. Versus Jets, who knows with Rodgers. Versus Giants, probably should win. But I mean, if the Steelers are 500, 4-4, I mean, or if they are 400, then forget it. Yeah. That second half is brutal. It's a saving grace that they get the 2 West Coast trips out of the way within the first 6 weeks of the season.
So obviously, I know for players, like they look at certain things like where are the really long trips, and they look at a number of different things. And I know for us, even like we're looking at, okay, like when we're traveling, we got 9 road games. So like, where are we traveling this year?
Everything's a drive in the last half of the season.
That's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying. Like for just from the reporter standpoint, like the team obviously flies everywhere. So like they fly, I think they fly to Cleveland.
They charter to Cleveland.
Yeah. So, but even then, that's what, a 20-minute flight.
Yeah, they charter everywhere.
Yeah, I mean it's so
charter
short.
Everywhere.
But what I'm saying is like, for us reporters, like we're looking at pretty much anything that's more than 6 hours. We're flying, like more than a 6-hour drive. Like we'll drive to Indy, but there's only 3 flights. So at least the road trips are 3 of the 9 are longer, and then the other 6 they're within driving distance for like a normal person who's coming out of Pittsburgh. And the thing is that 2 of them are right off the bat. You get them out of the way real quick.
Yeah.
At Atlanta, at Denver, and then it's at Vegas in week 6. And then after that, like you said, everything else is within driving distance.
The farthest west the Steelers go in the second half of the season is Cincinnati.
Yeah, it's a 5-hour drive.
So yes, if it is a brutal schedule, which it is, at least they don't have to go very far. There's not much travel. They at least made it easier from that standpoint. But also, the 2 short weeks after Ravens games, never easy, including one against the Chiefs. Having to go to Philadelphia. Now, that Chiefs game's on a Wednesday. It's Christmas Day. At the Browns Thursday night. Everything else is going to be Sunday. So if there's any grace there as well, those Sunday night games, those are both front-loaded into Week 5 and Week 7. The Amazon Prime is going to be that Thursday night at the Browns in Week, 12?
Yeah,
after that first Ravens game.
3 of the 4 primetime games are within 4 weeks of each other, weeks 5 through 8, and all 3 of those in that 4-week span are home.
Yeah.
It's Dallas, then after they go to Vegas, they then host the Jets on Sunday night and then host the Giants on Monday night.
The only primetime road game is at the Browns.
Yep.
So, I mean, if there's any saving grace, again, we're kind of looking for that saving grace because
there are some silver linings.
Brutal. Yeah, because the back half is so brutal.
Yeah.
Who and when does KC play before Christmas? I'll have to look for that, Jim.
Yeah, I've got the.
I mean, the Steelers will have it worse. I'll tell you that. At Eagles, at Ravens, you're not going to find much more difficult than that going into that Christmas Day game.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that we do have to remember here is, like, yes, you're playing the Chiefs on a short week, but it's a short week for them too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and so that is, and they're the ones having to go on the road. Now, it's not like it's Miami having to come to Pittsburgh on Christmas, or the Raiders having to come to Pittsburgh on Christmas. It's the Chiefs, a team that is more than used to playing in cold weather, snow, ice, whatever weather might have. I know a couple of years ago, whenever it was the Christmas Eve night game, it wasn't necessarily snowy, but it was single digit cold
against the Raiders. I remember that. I remember being home for that.
The walk to the stadium alone, like where the parking lot is for media. Mm-hmm. It's not a short walk, but it's also not like a long, like you're walking forever either.
It's a good little trek. Yeah,
it's a decent walk, and that walk was brutal. It was like 6 degrees with like 20-mile-an-hour winds. It was terrible.
Mm-hmm. By the way, the Chiefs 2 games leading into the Christmas Day game, they host the Browns the 15th, and they're at the Browns the 15th. Excuse me, at the Browns the 15th. Host the Chiefs the 21st. Or oh my God, help! Host the Texans.
Well, I mean, okay, so they're home, which makes sense because they're going on the road for Christmas. But those are not 2 easy teams.
No.
I mean, the Browns and the Texans. I mean, two playoff teams from last year.
Mm-hmm.
The Browns have a very good defense. That's not, and that one's on the road too. So they got to go at Cleveland, then short week, 6 days. They got to face Texans at home, and then they got to go on the road 4 days later.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not easy for them either. But it's also the Chiefs. It's also Patrick Mahomes. So
Taylor Swift, it's Travis Kelce.
Oh, who cares about Travis?
By the way, the Chiefs and the Texans also play December 21st, along with the Steelers and Ravens leading into that Christmas Day weekend.
They have to.
They made sure they put them on Saturdays to be compliant.
No, that was like because I remember like when that was first announced that there was going to be games on Christmas, which it's obviously a Wednesday, and there typically aren't NFL games on Wednesdays. So that the requirement was that those teams had to play on Saturday before, so it's essentially the same thing as going Sunday to Thursday.
Sure is. What block are you most excited for? You said, you said that 3-game block leading into Christmas would be the make or break point. But is that the part you're most excited for?
No, because I don't like going to Philly and I don't like going to Baltimore.
I like Philadelphia.
I hate Philly. Philly's gross. It's disgusting. No.
Tell them.
I have. I am very vocal when it comes to my disdain for Philadelphia. Can't stand it. Mm-hmm. Especially that area. The only place that's worse getting to that I've been to in terms of covering a game at stadium is Orchard Park. But at least the people in Buffalo are nice. The people in Philly are not
super nice.
Super nice. No, I by the way, I'm getting that thing again. So if I'm getting in and out, I'm sorry. But yeah, the one I'm personally most excited for is actually right off the bat. I liked covering the game in Atlanta a couple of years ago, so I'm looking forward to that. And then, believe it or not, I have never been to Colorado, so I'm very, very much looking forward to going to Denver because I've always wanted to go to Colorado. So looking forward to that.
Definitely,
that's the one I'm most looking forward to, probably. And then Vegas. I've never been to Vegas either, but it's not like we're going to be going to really experience Vegas.
No, not in that fashion. Not like you would like to.
No,
not like you would like to. I don't think a lot of people are going to be partaking like that when they go visit Vegas for the NFL. Kawhi says easy schedule first half, right? Easier.
Yeah, easier. It's not easy.
Easier.
I mean, you got 3 games that should be as close to what you could put as a slam dunk win. And of course, just based off of last year, with the Cardinals, like there's no such thing. Chris, I thought you retired. I did no such thing. My wife retired from 20 years of Navy service. Yes, thank you.
Back,
yeah. No, I mean 3 games in the first half. at Denver, at Vegas, and home against the Giants. Those have to be wins. I mean, you cannot afford to lose those games. Other than there's a couple of other like winnable games there. At Atlanta is a winnable game. I would say, even Chargers, the Cowboys, and the Jets. Yeah, I mean, obviously not easy wins, but winnable games. They should. I'm looking at the Cowboys are like their offensive line is in question, and who's their number one running back right now? I think it's Zeke.
I mean, Zeke Elliott's back, but it's not Tony Pollard. It's not Derrick Henry. I can tell you
That's what I'm saying. Dallas has some questions.
I'll tell you in a sec who their starting running back is.
I mean, Dallas has some questions. The one thing that really concerns me about Dallas is they've got a defense, they've got an elite edge rusher, and it's Dak Prescott going into a contract year. So, Lifted Ones, come on, hold on a second. Lifted Ones asks, is Russell Wilson better than Kenny Pickett? Yes, 100% yes. Not a question. That's not a question.
Their starting running back, if you want to call it that, Zeke Elliott, Rico Dowdle, Deuce Vaughn, and Royce Freeman. Yikes.
Yeah, it's a weak running back room.
I mean, they just drafted Tyler Guyton first round as well, so at least somebody on the offense.
They got. Line. I mean, yeah, it's just saying their offensive line is not as strong as it used to be.
No.
So again, like you just look at, okay, maybe that game is a little bit more winnable than maybe initial, and that's why you don't necessarily go based off of just last year's record. Steelers technically have the third hardest, strength of schedule when it comes to opponents' records from last year, but the Falcons aren't the same team. Their head coach is now the Steelers' offensive coordinator. Their quarterback situation is completely different. They got Kirk Cousins instead of Desmond Ridder. I mean, that's a gigantic upgrade.
Yeah.
The Broncos are, not the same team. Their quarterback is now your quarterback. The Cowboys are every team is different. So yeah, it's and B. Phil says, the Steelers aren't the same either. No, they're not. I think the Steelers have a better roster this year than they did last year.
I just looked at what the Cowboys did in the draft. Really confusing compared to what they actually needed. I mean, Guyton first round, fine. At 29, they moved back actually to get him.
Mm-hmm.
Marshawn Nealon, edge out of Western Michigan. He's not even going to start. Neither is their third rounder, Cooper Beebe, out of Kansas State. And they're moving him to center. He's going to be like a backup center, if anything.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Maris Lufa out of Notre Dame. I don't know. Their draft was a little head scratching to me when I look at it. Not many impact, ready to play now guys. I like Liufau, but not as their primary Mike linebacker. That's just not for me.
Yeah.
So yeah. Looking at the ticket sales, looking at the ticket prices, I considered yesterday the national holiday for airlines because, man, did those get hiked up. Same with the tickets, of course. I mean, tickets are tickets, right? But those airlines, when they see that schedule drop, flying from Pittsburgh to Vegas all of a sudden ain't so cheap or as cheap.
Especially not that weekend.
I remember talking with it was either you or somebody else about last year when the schedule came out, the flight from Pittsburgh to Seattle on New Year's Eve, and how expensive that got really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, it's for everybody. Like everybody has to pay it. If you're in media or you're a fan, that flight is not cheap. So.
I'll tell you right now, there's nobody happier than media outlets that cover the Steelers that 6 of the 9 road games are drivable.
Right.
I mean, not quite as happy as we were maybe in 2022 when the Steelers didn't even leave the Eastern time zone. But still, they leave the Eastern time zone, twice this year?
Yes. Two trips out west.
Yeah, Denver and Vegas, and that's it.
And then nothing further west than Cincinnati.
Yeah, after
fairly
Vegas.
Simple, or I guess Indy, but fairly simple.
Yeah,
yep.
And listen, I mean, Indy's one of my favorite places to go. I'm looking forward to Indy. So,
I had a blast at the combine there.
Oh yeah,
beautiful
Indy's,
stadium.
Indy's so much fun.
Beautiful stadium, beautiful facilities. Man,
All right.
I'm excited for not just that first half schedule, but I'm excited for the first 3 games of the season because I think all 3 of them are going to be good litmus tests for everything.
The Steelers typically start off a little slow, especially here in recent years.
Yes.
And I would expect there to be bumps early on. It's a new offense, new quarterbacks. There's a lot of new that takes a while to iron out. And, you hear Mike Tomlin talk about September football and all this kind of stuff. And I think that's a real thing. And that's why I think, those first 4 games, it might be a little bumpy. Like even if they win the games that they're supposed to win, I mean, they might not be as pretty, but lifted ones, like, are y'all going to visit these? If you're talking about the road games, then yeah, we're always covering. We don't ever not cover a Steelers game. DK's covered every Steelers game for I don't know how long, and then DK and I are traveling because remember I'm coming up there in July, so no, DK and I are going to be at every road game, 100%.
Yes, sir. Excited for it.
Okay, near the end of the show, way too early. What's your prediction for a record?
I got to pull the graphic back up. I just closed it because I don't have it memorized yet.
I don't have it memorized either.
No, I don't.
I won't for a while.
I won't ever. I'll have to. I had it posted on my fridge last year.
Oh yeah, and we're not even talking about preseason. So preseason, there's only one road preseason game, which makes sense, and that's in Detroit. So that's not even that far.
Yeah.
So
3, 4. I'm calculating. Do you have a number in your head?
Yeah, I'll go with mine. So to me, it really depends on 2 things. It depends on how they start, how those first 8 games go before the bye, and then that 3-game stretch that I talked about, the at Philly, at Baltimore, home against the Chiefs on Christmas. If they can go 1-2 during that 3-game stretch, which that's not a good record, but you're talking about salvaging something out of a really, really rough stretch. This team can go 10-7. They can. That's about the max that I'm wanting to go right now before I see the team do anything. I mean, even have take part in OTAs. They can go 5-3 in the first 8 games. And then here I'll just go from there. If they're 5-3 by the bye week, at Washington should win. That's 6-3. Home against the Ravens, since it's the home game, we'll say that's a win, 7-3. Then at Cleveland, at Cincy, even if they were to lose both of those, 2 divisional road games, they could go 7-5, and then split those with Browns. That can make them 8-5 before that stretch. They could be 8-5, go 1-2, which makes them 9-7, and then close out at home against the Bengals. And like I said, I don't think that they would get swept by the Bengals. I think a bare minimum expectant there should be at least splitting those. And so if they were to do that, then that would make them 10-7. So I think 10-7 is both realistic and probably the max that I'd want to go right now before but it's it's mid-May. A lot changes in the next 4 months.
I'm at 9-8.
I honestly, I can be too, honestly.
I see 9-8. When I see 2-1 in the first 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Colts is a toss-up. Cowboys, I think they lose. This is in mid-May, mind you.
I think we disagree on the Dallas game.
At Raiders is a win. Jets, I don't know. Giants, they win. They beat the Commanders. I'm just going to, for the sake of conversation, say they split the division, even though they might not. For the sake of conversation, they'll split the division. I can't see them beating the Eagles or the Chiefs right now.
No, if there's any game that if I'm a betting man and I say the Steelers lose, 100% it's at Philly. I think the Steelers have a better chance of beating the Chiefs on Christmas than they do of going to Philly and winning.
I see 9-8 right here. I just do. Maybe I'll be talked into something different by the time July comes around, August comes around. I see 9-8 right now.
I mean, I didn't go through the first half. I just said 5-3, and the reason I get to 5-3 is I think they can. I would say the same thing. They can go 2-1 in the first 3 weeks, however that goes. And even if they were to lose to the Colts, that would make them 2-2. They could win against Dallas, win against the Raiders, and win against the Giants. That already makes them 5-2, and they could even afford to lose to the Jets and still be 5-3 by the bye week.
Rock, here's the thing. Rock says I agree. 9-8 and wild card. I didn't say wild card.
I don't think a wild card gets.
I don't think 9-8 gets them into the postseason.
Yeah. I don't think 9-8 gets wild card.
Not in the
10-7 barely got them in last year.
9-8's not going to get them in the postseason. The AFC is deep this year. The AFC is way deeper than you think.
That's not changing anytime soon.
No, that's not new. But it's. I see 9-8. They missed the postseason, as of right now. Like I think they're firmly 8-8 going into Week 18. And they beat that. And they beat the Bengals at home.
Where do you have the difference? So you have them going 4-4 in the first half.
I got them going. Yes. Yes.
So we disagree on something in the first half.
We disagree on one game. There's one game that we disagree on in the first half, but yeah.
Yeah.
I see 9-8 they miss postseason as of right now. But a lot could change. A lot can happen. Injuries happen, of course.
Mid-May.
They still have to fix the roster. The June 1st cut line, like there's still plenty to go. What if one of our QBs balls out? 10-7.
Oh no! See, to me, I mean, if there's any difference maker, it's quarterback play. And if the Steelers have good quarterback play, not even great or elite, if they have good quarterback play this year, I'd say 10-7 is a very realistic record. Maybe even 11-6. It's just that tough of a schedule. It just is. The Ravens games, like even if they were to come away, think about it this way. Even if they were to beat Ravens both times, like they did last year, you got to think about the games that follow. You got to think about at Cleveland on 4 days rest, or on just 4 days later. You got to think about the Chiefs on Christmas 4 days later. That affects those games. Now you might already write off those two games as losses anyway. So maybe it ends up working out fine, maybe it doesn't. But there are certain nuances to the schedule, certain orders that do affect how the Steelers might line up. Maybe the Steelers have a much better chance, against the Chiefs because maybe Patrick Mahomes isn't hurt, but maybe one other really key player is injured, or maybe they're just decimated on defense. And if they have the good quarterback play that you would expect, then I don't know, man. It's difficult to predict at this point. It really is, and that's why when we give any kind of predictions in mid-May, man, take it with a grain of salt.
Of course, of course. All right, we are months away from that, but today we got to tease it a little bit, I suppose. Today's Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday. We'll be back for a Friday edition. Hey, DK and Ramon today. Ramon Foster Show, 4 p.m. Coming right at you where you found this on DK Pittsburgh Sports on YouTube. And later in podcast form, audio only, where podcasts are found. Thanks for joining in, everybody. We appreciate the discussion. We appreciate the questions, all the super chatters, etc. He's Chris Halicke. I'm Corey Crisan, and this has been the Southside Beat. Have a great Thursday, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow. It's almost Friday. Cheers. We'll see you.